If you want to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page to gain access to exclusive videos, take part in Q&As, and watch my retrospectives before they go live on YouTube.
Have a nice trip now. Take care. Oh, here. Have some beers in Valverde Matrix. It'll give everyone a little more time with your daughter.
You're a funny guy, Sully. I like you. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
John, we've got a problem. Someone's killing your men.
You gave them new identities.
There must have been a leak. Lawson, Forrestal, Bennett, they've all been hit.
Who is doing it?
You've made enemies all over the world, John. It could have been the Syrians, the South Americans, the Russians, or a terrorist group. They're gonna find you.
Where is she?
If you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate.
Wrong.
You are going to kill the president that you helped to overthrow me. You will do exactly as I tell you.
Someone has killed every man in the unit he belonged to.
And I think...
Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired.
He's after them now, I suspect. He's on a mission.
Yeah, well, I want his ass behind bars.
You steal my car, you rip the seat out, you kidnap me. You ask me to help you find your daughter, which I very kindly do. And then you get me involved in a shit out where people are dying and there's blood spurting all over the place. Are you gonna tell me what's going on or what?
No.
This Green Beret's gonna kick your big ass.
I eat green berets for breakfast.
This man has been trained specially never to retreat, never to surrender, to eliminate everything that blocked the completion of a mission.
Are you telling me that a several hundred-man police force, several SWAT teams, and all the technology of a modern police force can't stop one man?
Can't believe this macho bullshit.
I don't need no gun!
Commando hit the big screen in early October of 1985 in the USA and made its way to the UK in late February of 1986. Directed by Mark L. Lester, who at the time was best known for directing Class of 1984 and Firestarter. Commando cost in the region of $10 million to produce and would go on to make $57 million worldwide, making it a box office success. 1985 was a big year for the action genre. In May of that year, Rambo returned with First Blood Part 2, which was a massive hit, earning $300 million worldwide, despite getting largely negative reviews from the critics and being criticised for glamorising violence with 69 kills in the movie. But Commando would go on to beat that record with 81. Commando wouldn't make as much money as Rambo, as that was a sequel to an already popular film from 1982. Its rating may have also been a factor, with Rambo 2 receiving a 15 certificate and Arnold's latest movie being slapped with an 18, but Commando would receive more positive reviews from the critics. Variety wrote, "While it's not in the class of Schwarzenegger's last hit, The Terminator, Commando is actually superior to Rambo First Blood Part 2 because of its mixture of humour and action, and its deliberate evasion of any political message. The Los Angeles Times said it was full of spectacular stunts and shootouts. It's a gory crowd pleaser." Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert on the show At the Movies gave it a mixed review, with Gene giving it the thumbs down, but Roger gave it the thumbs up. Roger praised its action and humour. He felt it was more of a comic strip than a real movie, which didn't have the sophistication of The Terminator. He does, however, provide a funny critique on the movie's plot.
Commando was more of an action comic strip than a movie. The plot motivation is paper thin in this film. Schwarzenegger, tough guy. Bad guys kidnap daughter, he blow him up real good. This movie doesn't have the role.
Probably the whole script.
Right, there you got it, right there. It was a real short script. It's on the back of a small envelope.
Despite the movie being clearly aimed at adults, a small range of toys were released in 1986 by Diamond Toys. with some action figures and a 16-inch doll. These were rarely seen at the time and now fetch high prices on eBay, with the Arnold toy Matrix being the most desirable, as the other toys in the range have little connection to the other supporting characters in the film. Hot Toys years later, in 2014, would put out a collectible figure that is no longer available, and like the old toys fetches high prices on the second-hand market. A more affordable action figure can be sourced on eBay from NECA, but expect to pay more than double its original retail price. With Arnold at the time being best known for playing Conan the Barbarian and the Terminator, having him star in an action film set in contemporary times, and with the script being tailored to his sensibilities, it would create a clear path of where his career would go. Rambo, along with Commando, would inspire a large number of B-movie knockoffs, with Strike Commando, Commando Squad. Anything involving an ex-military guy who takes on an entire army by himself becomes a quick sell to fans hungry for more action, and there was even a Russian remake produced in 2008. In early 1985, Barry Diller of 20th Century Fox had met with Arnold Schwarzenegger at a party and was totally charmed by him, and he was nothing like his persona in Conan and the Terminator, and he went and spoke with Larry Gordon, who had produced a number of pictures with Joel Silver, and said, "If you can make a movie with Arnold for $10 million, I will greenlight it immediately." Then within a week things were set in motion for a new action movie with Arnold in the lead. Fox went through a number of scripts they owned, and they stumbled across Joseph Loeb and Matthew Wiseman's Commando script that was about an Israeli soldier who had turned his back on violence, which obviously is not what the movie would become, but it had elements in there that could be a good starting off point. Joseph had also written the scripts to Teen Wolf and its sequel, and he went on to become a popular writer of comic books, working with DC and Marvel, and more recently became a producer on the Marvel TV shows. Joel Silver bumped into Mark L. Lester at a party at the Playboy Mansion. They got on really well, and Joel offered him the job of directing his next project. But Mark wanted to read the script first, and Joel refused, saying he won't want to make it. Knowing Arnold was in line for the lead, Lester wanted to approach the film with this exaggerated reality to showcase Arnold's strength, and wanted it to be over the top. Stephen E. D'Souza, who worked with Larry Gordon and Joel Silver on 48 Hours, was given the job of revamping the script to suit Schwarzenegger's bigger-than-life persona, transforming Loeb's lead character from an Israeli soldier into a hero with comic book-level strength, and also Souza injected his sense of humour, including several new one-liners for Arnold. But Schwarzenegger had to be convinced to take the part, having already played two big physical roles, so Joel, Mark and Stephen visited Arnold at his home, and D'Souza was left to act out the script, even doing a poor impression of Arnold. The actor was sceptical at first, but ended up accepting the role, because it was more grounded in reality. He didn't have to perform topless or act like a machine. He now had the opportunity to be in a movie set in contemporary times, and that was a big step forward in his acting career. For the cast, of course, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger as Colonel John Matrix, retired from his profession and is now living with his daughter. But his house is still stuffed with guns. Arnold was paid $1.5 million, which was the highest fee he had received so far for a role, and even performed many of his own stunts, as the producers found it difficult to find a stunt double for the bodybuilder. The actor suffered a dislocated shoulder and had to visit the hospital a number of times to get patched up. Rae Dawn Chong plays Cindy, who gets pulled into helping John find his daughter. The producers screened dozens of actresses for the part, including Sharon Stone and Bridget Nielsen. None of them could bring a real comic flair until Rae Dawn tried out for the part. She improvised her way through an uncomfortable audition. Mark Lester felt she was perfect for the part. There was supposed to be a sex scene between Matrix and Cindy when they fly over to the Dictator's Island, but it was dropped due to the studio's request. Mark Lester agreed with their decision, saying that it would diminish Arnold's character, and they were kind of an odd coupling to begin with. Vernon Wells was cast as Bennett, coming in late into the production, replacing another actor who wasn't nailing the part, and Lester needed a replacement. Joel Silver was also producing Weird Science, and Vernon got a cameo in that film and was brought on to Commando. Vernon was best known for his role in Mad Max 2, and he would have become a popular choice of villain throughout the years. Vernon said Bennett was in love with Matrix, but he hated him. He wanted to kill him, but he was in love with him. According to Vernon Wells, he wasn't meant to look seductive in his too tight costume of leather and chains. The outfit simply didn't fit properly, because it was made for the actor he replaced. There was talk of his character being homosexual, and having that look with his outfit in the style of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and critics had complained about that, with it being somewhat in bad taste, but apparently that connection was never intended. But Vernon has pointed out that Bennett was in love with Matrix, so there is definitely something going on there with that character. David Patrick Kelly plays the slimeball Sully. whose cocky attitude puts him in John's bad books. David is a great character actor, appearing in The Warriors, 48 Hours, The Crow, John Wick and the TV series Twin Peaks. Alyssa Milano plays Jenny, John's daughter, who gets kidnapped by Bennett and his gang. Alyssa was well known for her role in the TV series Who's the Boss at the time, and would go on to star in the popular TV show Charmed. She also starred in the massive video game to movie Turkey, Double Dragon. Dan Hedaya plays President Arias, who wants revenge on John Matrix for overthrowing him as leader of the fictional country Valverde. Dan has appeared in many TV shows and films over the years, such as Alien Resurrection, and comedies such as Clueless and Night at the Roxbury. Bill Duke plays Cook, one of the hired guns to take out John Matrix. Bill would become a familiar face of action movies in the 80s, appearing in Predator and Action Jackson, but also made the leap to directing, working on TV series, documentaries, and directing features such as Sister Act 2 and Hoodlum. James Olsen plays Major General Franklin Kirby, who informs John that his team have been killed off. James retired from acting in 1990. He was a familiar face of TV throughout the 70s and 80s, appearing in shows like The Streets of San Francisco and Hawaii Five-0. His character would get some extra screen time in the deleted scenes. We also have some cameos with Chelsea Field, appearing as one of the flight crew. I'm sure many of you recognise her as Teela from the live-action He-Man movie. And we have the late and great Bill Paxton getting a small role as an intercept officer. Principal photography began in April of 1985 and lasted for 45 days. The film was shot on location in and around California. They made use of the Sherman Oaks Galleria, serving as the film's shopping mall location, making use of it after 9 PM, after the stores had closed. And with John Matrix attacking the barracks, they made use of beach properties belonging to the Hearst Castle estate. The mansion used in the final shootout was the former Harold Lloyd estate based in Beverly Hills. Lester said that he thought of Commando as a James Bond movie and cited Dr. No as inspiration for much of the humour. Lester wanted to give the film that pop art feel, so many bright colours were used, so it had that comic book vibe. An example he highlighted being the fight in the hotel room, which makes use of reds and greens. The director apparently caught a preview of Rambo 2 and decided to up the body count to compete with Stallone's latest sequel. Stephen D'Souza said the script originally contained some plausibility with the fight scenes and shootout sequences, with less bad guys on screen. Mark Lester admitted there was a lot of testosterone in the air during filming, and said the body count got so high that a lot of stuntmen were getting reused, with many stuntmen dying on screen as many as 4 times during the island fight scene. The film's original ending was supposed to be more extreme in nature, with Bennett fleeing the island on a speedboat with Jenny. Matrix would chase after and the two would fight it out on the beach, but the production ran out of money shooting the big shootout, leaving nothing for the final fight. Lester was forced to improvise, settling with a knife fight between Matrix and Bennett in a crammed basement that cost the production nothing. The furnace room for the climax is actually on the lot at 20th Century Fox. Mark had a look around the studio and found a furnace room right next to his office that looked like the perfect location and was free to use. The film opens with John's former members of his unit being killed off. His superior, Major General Kirby, informs him of the bad news and the leaked information of their whereabouts, and warns Matrix their killers will be after him next. The mercenaries, among them Bennett, who faked his own death, attacks John's secluded mountain home within minutes of him being informed and kidnaps Jenny. Matrix fights back but is overpowered by them and is taken before their commander, Arias, a former dictator of the country Valverde, who Matrix removed from power. Arias blackmails Matrix into carrying out a political assassination, so Arias can take over once again. With Jenny's life on the line, Matrix reluctantly agrees to his demands, but quickly figures out a way to escape to plan his mission to save his daughter, and gets a helping hand along the way. The late James Horner composed the score to Commando. Horner was already a popular choice of composer in Hollywood by the time he came to work on Commando. He had composed the scores to 48 Hours, Star Trek 2 and 3, Brainstorm and Krull. The score to Commando borrows a lot from Horner's previous work on 48 Hours, which was another movie produced by Joel Silver, who recommended Horner to director Mark Lester. The Commando score borrows the steel drums and heavy percussion. Horner was a popular choice for action movies for his contemporary style, with a blend of orchestral cues with electronic percussion with a mix of jazz. The score to Commando certainly divided critics and fans of his work. The mix of steel drums, saxophones, flutes, strings and synth is a strange approach, and for some they love it and others hate it. I don't particularly love the score. There are certainly parts I really like, the darker percussive moments work well, but the steel drums for me don't really do it any favours, and it seems the wrong approach for Arnold's character and the overall tone of the movie. But if you didn't have that, it would somewhat take away the charm of Commando and what makes it unique, I suppose. During the film, the music can be relentless, where the steel drums are just going overboard, when not much is happening on screen. It's not one of my favourite scores by Horner. Something like Star Trek II and Krull are superb from him around this time. The following year he would really deliver on Aliens, making it one of the best action scores of the 80s, but then Aliens would carry over some of his musical traits from Commando. Especially the sort of clicking sound he uses to make you jump are from Commando and probably from one of his earliest scores. So Horner was known for copy and pasting his musical cues quite often. I don't believe the score came out in 1985, I couldn't find any evidence of it being released on LP and tape. It wasn't until 2003 that they put out a limited release of 3,000 copies, but with only 8 tracks of music, totaling about 43 minutes. Then come August 2011, it was expanded to 62 minutes across 24 tracks, including the end title song We Fight for Love by The Power Station, which is proper cheesy. This CD would get reissued on LP in 2018 in a slick gatefold cover. This fetches high prices on the second-hand market, so if you want to own a physical copy of the score, you are going to have to cough up some large money to pick it up on CD or LP. I saw Commando in my early teens. I'm sure I caught it on TV late on a Saturday night, which is the prime time for some action and violence, and I really enjoyed it despite the TV version being cut to shreds so the gory violence was removed. But at that point I'd seen Predator first, so seeing Commando a bit later on, it did seem like a cheaper version of that film and less refined. But what made Commando so entertaining was its campy tone and cheesy one-liners, and of course over-the-top action. The plot is wafer thin, and you can easily criticise it if you had your snobby critic's hat on. There is obvious continuity gaffes with the car magically repairing itself, reused stunt doubles for the end fight, and stand-in dummies of the bad guys visible when Arnold destroys the paper-thin barracks. But it makes no attempts to make the audience treat it in any serious fashion. It knows what it is and what it's doing. Its purpose is to make people laugh and provide some great punch-ups and shootouts. The marketing and how it was sold as this Arnold action vehicle, it does exactly what it says on the tin. The simplistic poster really defined how his movies were sold. I suppose the Terminator did this a year before, with Arnold being very much the focus of the poster, but from Commando onwards, they keep the image simple, with Arnold at the centre to draw you in, and his physique really sells it. Commando is one of those rare movies where I didn't desire much from its story. You're not wondering where his wife is, we aren't given much backstory to Matrix and his team, we know Bennett is out to kill John, their previous missions aren't really explored apart from dethroning Arius. So you're kind of being dumped into the later part of these characters' lives, and you're kind of missing the first act, so to speak, for the characters to be set up. You are instead instantly thrown into a movie with people getting killed off, the general turns up and warns Matrix, and as soon as he leaves, the bad guys are there. Is it me, or are they super efficient, or the general has dragged his feet to warn Matrix? The comedy is really spot on throughout the film. D'Souza often brings a great slice of gags and one-liners to his scripts, and Arnold delivers them with ease. CHONG seems to be the only one operating in the real world, where she finds everything Matrix does completely mad and bonkers, and seeing all this action, she isn't wowed by it, but instead shocked and finds all this macho stuff to be nonsense. But you could argue she's a little underused and left on the plane come the final act. I wouldn't have expected her to take part in any action, but perhaps she could have played a bigger role in the third act. The opening credits with Matrix and Jenny is amazingly funny. It's so bloody cheesy. Watching them feed a deer, getting ice cream. She puts the ice cream in Arnold's face, he does a big laugh, and then chilling out eating a sandwich as Matrix reads Jenny's non-threatening boys magazine. So even after the opening act of John's team getting killed off, you are really informed of what to expect from the film. You know you are in for a good ride. The standout villains are Cook, Sully and Bennett. Bill Duke has this great presence and attitude throughout, keeping a cool look on his face and rarely speaks. He takes on Arnold and puts up somewhat of a good fight. It always makes me laugh when Duke walks into the hotel room and gets punched from behind and lets out a girly cry. Sully is a total creep, and you just want Matrix to get his revenge on him for his insults, because he's just a little cocky turd. David Patrick Kelly is always so good at playing these types of characters, you just have to watch The Warriors or The Crow. He is the perfect character actor to play a slimy villain.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Matrix, you did!
I lied.
Bennett doesn't have the physique to stand up to Matrix, he seems more out of shape, but what makes him threatening is his personality. Also, he is a bit of a bumbling fool, as we see him smash through a boarded up window. He seems completely unhinged and desperate to kill Matrix. Vernon Wells is always so good at playing someone who you would be terrified of, and the final battle, despite being cut down from its original conception, it works a treat and is full of great dialogue, and the editing cuts fast to amp up the action to give it some real energy.
I'm gonna kill you now!
It's funny, with all the cheap knockoff movies that copied Commando, I think filmmakers who looked to cash in on the action craze during the 80s, just ripping off the plot wouldn't suddenly make a great movie. What is key to the success of Commando is Arnold. The action, you could say, is a bit loose and clunky compared to, say, Predator or even Red Scorpion starring Dolph Lundgren, but Arnold is what makes the film work so well, and of course his supporting characters, who have to either battle him or come to his aid, all help complete the package. Outside of Arnold's physique, his humour, intelligence and charm is what made him so successful. He seems to have great comedy timing with the one-liners, and you can believe that he can carry all these weapons and not break a sweat. His famous suit-up scene is one of the most iconic moments from the film, and has been spoofed and homaged over the years. It seemed after the Terminator it was completely logical for him to go this way. He could be accepted as a hero or a villain, but being this superheroic one-man army is what made him so thrilling to watch, and would be what audiences expected from him. Commando is probably the silliest action movie on Arnold's resume, but the film revels in its silliness. It has no shame or feels embarrassed by what it does. Some action movies that take themselves too seriously end up zapping the fun out of them. But not for Commando. It's 90 minutes of pure action, violence and cheese. What is there not to love?
Let off some steam, Bennett.
You're getting old, John. Oh, shit!